Hello, everyone, and welcome to 100% You, a podcast which is all about discovering who you're truly meant to be and becoming the best version of yourself. I'm your host, Barbara Burrell, and I've been on the self development journey for the past 15 years and spiritual journey for the past 13 years. In today's episode, I'm going to take you to my own spiritual journey and tell you a story that for years I didn't want to tell anyone. So, buckle up and let's start with today's episode. I really wanted to share on one of the episodes about my own journey because I talk a lot about spirituality and about practices and techniques that I tried, insights that I gained and learned throughout the years. But I want to take you a little bit back to where I started. And I particularly want to talk about a specific scenario that happened to me, which honestly, till today, I don't really know how to call it, but the most close name that I can call it is a near-death experience. Nothing happened to me, thankfully. Everything was fine, but it was spontaneous near-death experience. Again, I don't like to use terms because I believe terms kind of restrict and limit what you're trying to say. And because I never heard about anyone experiencing something like what I experienced through spontaneous happening. I don't like to call it in names, but the only name that I have for it is near death experience. We'll talk about it just in a second. But in general, I'll take you back. So I've talked a lot about it here. Growing up, I was really open to spirituality from a really young age, around 13, 14 years old. I was really drawn to learn about what is God, what is energies. I was really, really interested in understanding how this world operates. And I remember one thing that really led me was to understand what is God and understand whether I believe in God or not. Because back then, I really believed in energies, that everything is energy and we all connected. But at the same time, I didn't know what do I believe in because I did grew up hearing a lot about believing God. I really want to solve this problem and understand and learn that. So during high school, I used to read bunch of self-development spiritual books, usually more like self-development with a connotation to spiritual books of like awakening and stuff like this, learning about intuition. Intuition was a really big part of something I tried to learn. But in general, I was really open to learn and understand things and how we operate. I also started recognizing patterns at a really young age. And I remember that from around when I was 15, 16, I used to watch my own patterns and I understood that my body is just a vessel. I understood that my body is just a form of physical matter and I understood that I am more than that. I remember there was one scenario when I had the eating disorders and I was like pinching the entire kitchen. And I just watched my own behavior. And I remember that I felt that I'm really conscious, but at the same time, I saw that my hands and my body moved to directions I don't want to. They touch the refrigerator, they touch the food, they open the whatever. And I just remember that I was so present. I stopped for a second and I told myself I am more than my physical body. And I just was so present and I watched my body how it operates. It was the weirdest experience ever. Because think about it, it's like someone who is really addictive to something, okay? Maybe you're addicted to cigarettes, maybe you're addicted to alcohol, maybe, I don't know, like whatever you're addicted to, if you're addicted to something. I hope you're not. But I just watched my behavior from above and it was so interesting because I was so calm. I just let go control and I looked at what my body's doing. And from that moment on, I understood the power that there is something much higher than my physical body. And it was a goal of mine to learn and master how to navigate those two worlds, the physical matter and the spiritual matter. I became obsessed with learning the differences and I became obsessed with understanding what is God and what is the source of the universe. And I was around 16, 17 years old when this all happened, 15 even, but the peak of it was when I was around 16, 17. And what happened next? I grew up in Israel. In Israel, everyone, no matter if you want or you don't want, you have to go to the army for at least 2 years, unless you have some kind of health condition or you're like super religion person and then you can skip the army and do something else instead. But in general, the entire society, you must go to the army. I hope people who listen to this podcast, you're I hope you're not the kind of people who are like politics and all that kind of stuff, because this is all bullshit. I hope you're not the type of people who spreading hate just based on where people live. So I don't mind to talk about this, because believe me, you can get a lot of hate when you talk about those stuff. Also, like being in Israel is going to the army. That's the whole point. So before I went to the army, and in the army there's different types of roles, different types of job, especially when you're a girl. There's so many different things. I was in the army in charge of education. So in every base, you basically have education department that you teach soldiers about history, about the country, about everything that you can basically teach. And this is what was my role. I also was in charge of like experiences. So I used to organize a lot of trips in Israel for soldiers, or going for vacations during the weekend. So I was in charge of that. But before I did my role in the army, I receive a message, a letter. So before you go to the army, usually what happens, you receive different letters, or different, like, in the past it was letters. Today I don't know if it's letters, but you get the opportunity to interview for different types of roles. Usually don't really have control on this, so you can be stuck in a role that you don't want for 2 years, but sometimes you get the opportunity to interview to different kinds of roles. So I got a letter to my home, which basically said something from the army, that there is a great opportunity to be in specific place where you learn about the country and about the history of Israel and all of that kind of stuff. And I saw this and I literally looked away, and this is not, I don't like this. I don't want to do something regarding to history. I hate history. Back then I hated history. Today I love history. But I really didn't put a lot of thought on this letter, so I just ignored it. And my parents are divorced, so I used to live with my mom, and my mom at that specific week, she flew to Russia with my brother, so I was alone in my house. And my father came to pick me up to go to a dinner. And when he came home, he saw this letter of the army that they telling me to go to this kind of place. And when we sat to eat dinner at a restaurant, he told me, listen, and it was around 8 p.m. He told me, listen, Bari, I really want you to go to this role, to this thing. And just so you understand, the interview was the morning after. So we sat to eat at around 8 p.m. and the interview was at 8 a.m. in the morning. So my father told me, listen, I really want you to go to that thing. If any Israelis listening to this, so basically the letter was for Course Nativ. That's the name of like the course. And he told me, I really want you to go there. If you respect me, you should go. And I told him, listen, I really love you, I appreciate you, but I don't really want to do something with history related in my military service. Like, sounds interesting, cool, but not for me. And then my father told me, no, it's not a history course. And then what I discovered, my father told me, this is actually a course that you can do to convert and become Jewish. And I told him, okay, so why should I go there? I prefer to do something more interesting, to be, I don't know, anything else. And then he told me, no, you don't understand. I told him what? And he said, your mom is not Jewish. And I was shocked, because I grew up my entire life as Jewish. My father is Jewish. I grew up in Israel. My mom is Jewish. And my mom made Aliyah. She came to Israel when she was 13 because they have anti-Semitism in Russia. My father, his family lives in Israel for hundreds of years. We have many, many generations lives in Israel here. And my mom's last name is also Jewish last name. So I was really confused. I told him, what? But I'm Jewish. And he said, no, your mom is not Jewish. And apparently, so I didn't know this growing up. Apparently, what happened is that in Christianity, basically, the way they look at this is whether your father is Christian or not. So if your father is Christian, you're a Christian. If not, so you're not Christian. And in Judaism, basically, it's based on your mother. So what happened is that my mom, her mother was Christian and her father was Jewish. So what does it actually mean? In Israel, it's called that you have no religion. Okay, so what happened if my mom has no religion in Israel based on the records? I basically born with no religion, which is insane to think about this. This is so cool. And because I was so like interested in understanding everything, whether I believe in God or not, I was really curious about this topic, but I didn't had the time to think about it. Now, what happened is that apparently in the army, they still have it. You can go and do a course that basically is like a shortcut to become a Jewish. So if you're not in the army, this process can take 3, 4, 5 years, and it's a really, really tough process to convert and become Jew. But if you're doing it from the army, it's much easier. It still takes a lot of time. It takes around 6 months, but in general, the process is much faster because you're under organization that basically they can see you every day and see if you're doing like the religion practices. Okay. And just a side note for anyone who listened to this and is not Jewish or Israeli, the army, the military service in Israel, the IDF is not religion. Okay. So this is basically something that you can do in the army. There's many different opportunities, many different courses. So this is just one of the things you can do. It's definitely not mandatory. It's just an option. The same way as you want to become a vegan, and it's the same thing. You can do also this process during the army. So instead of doing it outside the army, they basically provide the people who want to do this conversion process inside the military service. So what happened is that my father told me tomorrow morning you have the interview, and this is your only chance to, if you will ever want to become Jewish, to do it, because if you will do it not in the army, it will be very, very hard to do this. It will take you years, and I don't think you will want to do this because it's really, really tough process. And listen, I was 18. I had no clue what does it actually mean. I didn't have the time to process it because back then, like thinking about the situation of being have no religion was actually a really cool thought, but I didn't have the time to process it and to think about it. So I decided to go to the interview in the morning after. So I went there and I signed up for the course. And I told myself that worst case scenario, I will not finish it because no one forced me. I can do whatever I want. I'll still be in the army, of course, because I have 2 years, but it's just 3 months course. And then like I have to still do some kind of stuff in order to show that I'm converting and go to the synagogue and all that kind of stuff. But it's only 3 months course. So I decided to sign up for this, and it was a huge shock for me. Okay, living 18 years and then understand that you have no religion. That was insane because again, I grew up as a Jewish person. So I went to the army, and when I did the army, so the first 3 months, you can do it either during your military service at the end or whatever. And I did it at the beginning of my military service. So I did 3 months, and I have a strong belief. I also had it before I went to the army. When I finished high school, I really believe that if you have resistance towards something, there is something waiting for you on the other side that you must go through it. It's a belief that I have from a really, really young age. I don't really remember where I have it from, but in general, this is something that really leads me. And I'm telling you, each and every time that I follow this, the best thing in my life happened. So I back then had really, really resistance toward religion people. And because I had such a resistance toward religion people, I told myself I have an opportunity to go to something that I have really strong resistance and to actually be part of that and to study it. And when you go to this course, you basically study from the morning from 7 a.m. till like 8 p.m. The entire day you just study. You have 2 hours or 3 hours break, and that's it. And throughout the entire day, you just study religion, study history, study things about Israel, anything you need to do in order to convert and become Jewish. You pray 3 times a day. Things that, when you grow up in Tel Aviv, in a big city, you're not religion, you don't experience this kind of stuff because they don't teach you religion stuff in school. You do learn about Torah, but nothing more than that. You don't really know the practices that you need to do. You don't really know the prayers. You don't learn this in school in Israel. Depends, of course, on which school you go to, but the most basic school, you don't learn this. So I was very open to this, especially because I had this goal in my head that I want to learn and understand what is God. So I came to this super open, super open, and I want to devote my entire energy to learn this method, to learn Judaism, to learn everything. And also, so you just understand, I grew up in Tel Aviv, okay? It's the most hipster city in Israel, probably. So I remember I used to tell friends that I'm going there. Everyone was like, she's nuts. She's nuts. I don't know why she's doing this. Also, like all my friends back then, no one was related to religion. It was what is she doing? This is so weird. So I decided to go there. I went there and I had a thing before I went to the army that for like 2 years, since I was like 16, 17, 18, I had a notebook under my pillow that I used to read every morning, every evening. I had something that I wrote of like, I'm thankful for the life I had, a bunch of stuff that I was grateful for. And it was my practice every morning and every evening for 15 minutes. It was my little ritual that I created myself. Don't ask me why, how I got to this. I don't know. It's just something that I decided to do by myself. Maybe I read it in a book. I don't remember, but it became a ritual that I did for a really, really long time. And when I got to the course Nativ, that was the name of the course, Nativ, we started praying. It was so weird for me at the beginning, but something that I realized really early on at the course that what we're praying every morning in the Judaism, morning, noon, and evening, is basically everything the same concept as the things that I wrote for myself in my notebook. So what I decided to do to make it something that it will be easier for me to relate to, I took my notebook to the synagogue every morning. And once we prayed, there's one prayer in Judaism that name is Tfilat Shmona Esrei. If I'll translate it, so it's like the 18 prayer. And basically you pray for many different things of the existence of them. And you pray and say thankful for the sky, for the sun, for the rain, for the birds, for the people around you. Basically, you're just grateful for everything in your life and in the entire universe. And there is one part in this prayer that you basically improvise and say whatever you want. You close your eyes and you just pray for whatever you want. And this is your me time during the prayer that you don't need to follow the instructions, I would say, the prayer. And when we got to the 18 prayer, Tfilat Shmona Esrei, and we had this moment of just praying for whatever we want. I took my notebook and I started reading the things that I want. I want to manifest, I want to have in my life, all the things that I want. I just started praying for this. And it was really interesting experiment to do something and be part of a community of something that I would never in my life thought would do. Also, so in the army, basically in Israel, at least, it depends what role you're doing. But when I did this course, so from Sunday to Thursday, you were staying in the base, and then you went almost every weekend back home. Once in three weeks, something like this, we were closing in the base and we were staying there, and everyone stayed together for 2 weeks. But when we came back home, if you want to do it correctly, the whole conversion process to become Jewish, you also need to go to synagogue when you're at home. You have you joining a religious family, and you basically meet them for dinners, for Shabbat dinners, and you really need to like be part of it also to keep Shabbat and not being on your phone. So basically part of Judaism is in the weekend, we call it Shabbat. So you don't use any electricity basically. And this is really actually a fun thing to do, just not being on your phone, on computers, not watching TV for 24 hours, which is really nice actually. I really recommend doing it sometimes. So I did it. I was really devoted to, if I'm doing something, I want to do it, the best I can and to learn, because I knew that I will never do it again, because I do believe that there's things that's above religion. And the whole experience basically was really interesting. As I said, I learned a lot. First of all, I started gather insights and I started understand what I feel about religion, what do I think God is, and I started writing a lot during that time. I was the whole time, even our free time, I used to read books that they gave us because I was so obsessed with figuring out what is God and how this universe works. And I remember one time, so this is like the story basically of the experience I told you. So one time, it was one Shabbat that we stayed on the base. It was after, I think, 2 months we did the course. It was really close to the end of it. And at that moment, I felt very pure. I remember I never felt so pure in my entire life, because also in the prayers itself, in each prayer, there's different things. But in general, first of all, think about this as something that you practice consistently every day. So there's many things that are really beautiful in the Judaism, let's say when you wake up, you say thank you for being waking up. Then before anything you touch, you need to wash your hands, because in the Judaism it basically says that there is a separation between when you sleep and when you're awake. And when you sleep, you're like in a deaf mode, so you need to wash your hands in order to activate yourself and be live. Before you eat, you pray for it, for everything you eat. So there's a lot of beautiful things. Also during the prayers itself, there's certain prayers that you actually think about things you want to apologize, you want to say sorry. So I also felt that the entire 2 months I was letting go of many things that not serving me anymore, and many things that I felt that I was carrying with myself, anger or like disappointment from people, anything that I was holding with stress and fear and doubt and anger and any negative emotion. I felt that during the prayers I was uncovering them also while we study and learn about the religion. So I felt very, very pure at some moment, and I remember I was just always happy, because you practice something that is constantly being grateful for things constantly, and this is all I was doing. You also not allowed to be on your phone when you're in this course. So think about it, for 2 months I barely touch my phone, and we pray all the time, and we study about religion like from morning till night, which again, it's insane. It's something that I never thought that I will do. And as I said, there was one weekend, one Shabbat, that we stayed in the base. And during Shabbat, you're doing many different things. You can read books, you can be with friends and play cards. It's basically not being on your phone and just trying to live your life, okay? And I remember we were a group of girls laying on the grass outside. Each one of us read a different book. And at some point, I really don't remember what book I read, but again, I felt that I was the purest I ever felt in my entire life. I don't think I ever felt like this ever again. And at some point, I still don't know how to really explain it. I definitely was awake. I wasn't sleeping, but suddenly I saw a white light, okay? The exact same thing that people describe how they had near death experience. So I was laying on the grass. Out of nowhere, I saw really bright light in front of me, and all I could see is just light, pure light. I couldn't see anything else. And I don't even know if my eyes were closed or open, just so you understand. Like, it was so insane. I think they were closed. I'm not sure, but I just saw pure light. Yeah, my eyes were closed because I remember I opened my eyes, but I was super awake. I saw bright light. And after a few seconds, I really don't remember the timing, because you don't have a feeling of time when you experience those kind of things. At some point, I saw a tunnel, same way as people that experience near death experience describe. I saw a white tunnel, and I didn't had a body. It's just your consciousness, basically. That's what I felt. I saw a white tunnel, long, long tunnel, and basically I felt that I get sucked in this tunnel and going up, up, up in this tunnel. And I remember I had my feeling in my body was really different. I never felt like this in my entire life. It was different feeling than what we experience in our everyday life. So I went up in this tunnel, and then I remember there was door. And during this entire experience that I had, I didn't feel like I didn't had a body. Okay, I'm really trying to explain it well, but it's really hard. It's just my consciousness, and everything I saw, it was pure light. I didn't see physically anyone, but I saw people. So I went to this tunnel up, and then there was someone, we can call it a being, an angel, I don't know, whatever you believe in, you call, but a soul that opened the door. And it didn't really look like a door, but it's just like I felt that there is a door. And I went inside, and what I saw, it was everything was bright, light, white. I didn't see physically stuff, but the feeling was that I was the happiest I ever was in my entire life. Just pure happiness and joy. And what happened next is that I felt that I recognized everyone that is there, and I just understood everything. I understood why I'm in this world. I understood why I'm here. I understood how the universe works. I understood everything. And I was in this bright color, so I felt like there is soul, angel, I don't know, whatever, how to call it, some kind of being next to me that basically took me to this place and showed me. Back then, when I thought about it, I was 18, now I'm 26, almost 27. I thought it was God, but now I think it's an angel or some kind of being, I don't know, or soul, I don't know. But I just felt someone is leading me to this place, which was all white. And I'm really trying to explain, I'm doing my best. And I felt that I recognized all the people there, and I felt that many people come to, and it's not really people because you don't see people, you just, it's souls, like it's consciousness. I hope you understand me. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably understand me. But I just felt that I recognize everyone, and those souls came to me and hugged me, and I hugged them. And I don't remember who I saw, because once I came back to the 3D, I didn't remember everything. It's like half of my memory erased. But I do remember that I recognized them. It was souls that I recognized. It was a group. And I remember they hugged me. And I remember a few of them told me, it's not like you can speak. It's just awareness. You just know. You just speak to each other. And like you see bright colors and you just feel that there is soul in front of you. I don't know how to explain it, but I hope you understand. And I remember a few of them told me, why are you here? It's not your time. And a few of them like start telling me, it's not your time. What are you doing here? We're happy to see you. It's not your time. And I started walking. And again, you're not really walking. You don't have legs. You don't have body. It's just your consciousness in a really white room. Space. It's not room. It's space. It's basically your entire universe. And I remember going inside to this place far from the where I came from. And I remember this group is like going after me, and the angelic being or this spirit that basically led me to this place, she was like next to me and like walking with me, and the whole group were like going with me. And I was so fascinated. I felt again the happiest I ever felt in my entire life. And I just realized I understood, like, this is what I was looking for, to understand the source. And I just understood everything at that moment. And I remember I was going more inside, and at some point, I don't remember the timing, I don't understand how much time it was, but at some point, one of those spiritual beings told me, if you're gonna go more inside, you could never go back again. It will be hard. I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something you can go in more because you could not go out. And I was so curious, and I was like, why would I want to go back if it's so happy here? It's so good. And I remember they're just like pulling me, and it was like, bar enough, you need to go back. And then we go back, and I again experienced that I went through this door and then got back inside this tunnel down. And then I opened my eyes. First of all, I was shocked. I did not understand what happened to me. And I felt in my entire body differently. I felt like, I remember when I opened my eyes, first of all, I couldn't speak to people for 3, 4 days. I couldn't speak. I felt like I just discovered the most ancient secret that I cannot tell anyone. I was really scared because I did not understand what happened, and it felt like I was messing around with the universe. It felt like I discovered something that I need to keep it as a secret. Also, it took me a few years until I started talking about this. Only in the past 2 years, I started feeling very comfortable talking about this, like very comfortable, because in the past, before that, every time I tried to speak about this with people, I felt a circle of energy around me, and it felt like if I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna die. That's what I felt each and every time. And okay, so after I opened my eyes, I remember it took at least 2, 3 days until my body got back to normal state. So this I know only from a friend that did drugs. I never, like, I don't touch drugs. I didn't do. And a friend told me that she did mushrooms and she had the exact same feeling. So when I opened my eyes, I felt that my body is like, I didn't felt my body in the space like we feel it normally. I felt like when I take my hand, I'm showing in the video, so if you're not watching, just watch for a second. So I remember I took my hand and I was like going like this in the space. I felt like there's a bunch of particles and that my hand is like there's something here and I feel every particle, and I was like doing like this for 3 days. Remember, I went to the bathroom that no one will see me, and I was like, what is happening here? And it was insane. So my being, my physical body felt different in the space itself. I remember when we got back home, I also wrote on in my journal. I wrote like 10 pages because I told myself that I must write after this. I was really scared to talk about this with people. I was really scared to also write about this, but I felt like I need to write my insights because once I opened my eyes, I just understood everything. I understood how this world works. I understood everything. What was interesting that I think 90%, I don't know exactly how much, but majority of the things that I knew, once I opened my eyes after like a few minutes, I forgot everything. It's like you knew something and then you cannot know this anymore. So I forgot most of it. So I wrote my insights from what I understood and what I realized, why we have religion, why this world operates. And I remember back then, my number one understanding was that this whole world is a simulation. That's like the number one thing I understood. And second thing, I understand that basically we have each soul basically has mission that we come here, and I understood many, many things. But the general thing is that, okay, start being heavy to talk about this, but I'm really trying every time to, to stretch my limits of what I'm talking about. So, in general, after this experience, for a few years, I didn't want to touch spirituality again. So, I really went to the more physical stuff and more like real estate, work in sales, opening a business, because I felt that I was like so spiritual that I needed to go to the opposite direction. And only from like 2022, I feel like I started to find the balance between both of these worlds, because also I was introduced to spirituality from really, really young age. I feel like most of my experience were very spontaneous. Yeah, I can't believe I'm doing an episode about this, but I hope you understood what I'm saying. For years, as I said, I think the first person I told about this thing was after a year when I was in the army, because I found someone in the base that I was with in, and he was really spiritual and he really like tried to practice out of body experience and many, many different techniques. And he was the only one that I told about this because I saw that he talked to me about those stuff. And he told me that this is something he tried to experience for a really long time and he couldn't. And he told me this is something really special that you had this spontaneously. So he was the first one. And then I think I didn't talk about this for a few more years until like 2021, 2022. I started speaking about this again. I experienced this in 2018 it was when I experienced this at the beginning of like January 2018. And as I said, every time I spoke about this, I felt like really fear about talking about this. I felt like, I don't know, I was really afraid of it. And the first time that I started being comfortable about talking about this is when I met one of my best friends in university, and she's very spiritual, and she grew up in a really spiritual family, and she could understand many terms that I maybe didn't know. So she was kind of my teacher because she learned this kind of stuff at home. So she was the first one that really I felt gave me the confidence and safety to talk about these things. And later on, everyone that I spoke with, I just felt normal talking about this. And I understood that there is a lot of power to talk about this. Now, why did I want to do this episode and tell you about this experience? First of all, because I think it's very interesting to hear about other people's experiences. Second, I want you to get to know me better and also understand my spiritual journey. I have many more stories that I had throughout the years, but this is one of the, I think, most meaningful ones that really let me trust myself and understand that I'm here for much, much more, and not being afraid of it. Although, sometimes I am and I forget about this, but it was really, really powerful. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe some kind of inspiration that you will get from this and insights, because, sometimes hearing different people speak about different stuff can give you some insights yourself. Yeah, this is what I feel comfortable right now sharing, basically. But in general, this whole experience, I feel like really gave me the confidence that I came here for something big, that I know that from a really young age I dream really big, and I feel like I needed to go through this experience in order to feel comfortable doing bigger stuff in the future and trust myself fully. Yeah, so this is my little story. I hope you enjoy this. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'd love to answer. Of course, if it's normal questions that I can answer. And just thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.